Hey everyone, it's Ashley with Southern Sewing Company. Welcome back to my channel. I am bringing to you a hack that maybe I found. Maybe everyone else already knew about this and I'm behind the 8 ball. Have you ever tried to hand embroider a sleeve of a sweatshirt or a shirt and had any kind of complications trying to run your hand up the sleeve and getting stuck and it just takes forever? And I think I found the solution. Stay tuned. So here we have our sweatshirt. The first thing that we need to do is decide which sleeve we want to embroider on. We're gonna go with the right sleeve to measure how long that we want our names to go. For this particular sweatshirt, we need 5 names embroidered. I'm gonna have the names go about 6 inches up the sleeve. That looks pretty good to me. So I'm gonna write that down for reference. I'm also going to embroider the grandma's name around the collar here. So I'm gonna measure about how long I might want that to be. Maybe 3.5 inches. So I'm gonna record that number also. Next, we're gonna hop on over to my Canva app and I'll show you what comes next. From here, I'm opening up an 8.5 by 11 inch paper in Canva. I've got my names typed out. This is the Joanne Marie font. And as you resize it, so I'm gonna grab this corner and drag, you can see the height down there at the bottom. I'm gonna get it about 6 inches. This is what size that I want my names to be, so I'm gonna leave that right there. I'm gonna grab another text box with the same font. That's the name Yaya, so we're gonna increase this till it's about 3.5 inches wide. Now we're gonna curve this. I'm gonna go to Effects and Curve. And down here you can see that I'm 100% to the right. I'm gonna switch this to the other way to match the curve that's on my sweatshirt, which you might have to try a couple times to get this right. I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna elongate it just a little bit more. Now that I'm happy with my name, I'm actually gonna get these names a little bit closer together. That looks a little bit better. I'm gonna download and print this. Okay, I'm back. 2 things that you're gonna need for this project: water soluble and sticky stabilizer. This is by Sulky. There are pros and cons, and I'm gonna explain in just a second. A water soluble marker. This is a Mark Begon. This is my favorite brand. I'll use this on a pure white quilt and it always comes out. Back to this, definitely need some kind of a stabilizer. This advertises as printable, which you can actually stick into your printer and print on it. I've had problems in the past with my printer ink running into my embroidery work, and I was really sad after many hours on a project. So I wouldn't recommend printing on it. Maybe that was just me. I like to use this because it's sticky and it's water soluble. It washes off clean, but I use a water soluble marker. So next comes the secret that I have discovered. Instead of trying to embroider in and out of this sleeve, we're gonna flip it over and rip this seam and then hoop our work. So this is where you have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to put a hole in your work. We're gonna take out a couple seams from the back and then flip it over to the front. I like to go a couple inches up from the cuff because it can be difficult to sew this back perfectly. So I'm just gonna go maybe 1 inch or 2 inches above and start there. So we're gonna rip probably about halfway up the sleeve here. I wouldn't go to the armpit, that's a little excessive, but rip about halfway up the sleeve just so you have enough room to flatten it out, and I'll show you what to do next. We've got our sleeve opened up in the back, so now we have easy access to the front. If you just purchased your sweatshirt, you should have a center line already made. If you're using an old sweatshirt, just iron this. So we're gonna flatten our sleeve out as much as possible. Next, we're gonna take our name. I'm gonna peel the paper backing off. You can kind of see where the middle is already. If you feel the need before you take your paper backing off, fold it in half and create a crease. And then press down firmly over the whole thing. Next, I'm using a 6.5 inch embroidery hoop. I'm gonna place the bottom underneath. Be very careful when you're hooping your work that you're not overstretching your fabric. So definitely make sure that you have some kind of leeway. This should not be super tight. So the back stitch is a very easy stitch that anybody can do. It's a very easy alternative compared to something like the chain stitch that requires a little more technicality, finesse to make it look good overall. First thing we're gonna do is get a pretty long piece of thread. All embroidery floss has 6 strands, so I'm gonna split it into 2 groups of 3. And I'm gonna run my finger down the middle so that it splits into 2, and I'm gonna save the other one for later. I'm gonna run my thread through my embroidery needle, and then I'm gonna tie a knot at the end. Usually I'll double knot this just to be safe. I'm going to start coming from the back of my work at the bottom of the A here and pull my thread all the way through till I reach the knot. I'm going to go up just under 1/4 of an inch following the line. I'm going to pull my stitch through. From the back side, I'm going to move up another 1/4 inch, pull my thread all the way through, and stick my needle back down in the hole in the previous stitch. It's important to make sure that your needle goes right through the same hole, or else you're not going to have a straight line. I realize this isn't a really technical explanation of how to do the back stitch. This is more of a simple, just quick guide. I am going to do a more in-depth tutorial on the back stitch with a much closer camera angle and a better color thread, so stay tuned for that. That's definitely coming soon. I've reached the end of my first name, and I'm right here at the end of the Y. So you see me right here. I'm going to tie off right here. I'm not going to make the jump to the B because you're going to feel that long thread when you slip your hand into your sleeve every single time. So I'm going to tie off from the back on the end of the Y. I don't want to make this big jump here. So from the back, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to run it through the stitches that I've already created and pull it tight. And I'm going to do this a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times. I'm going to run through the back. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to double knot my loose ends just to secure them, cut them. And I'm going to start the process over. I'm going to thread my needle and double knot the end, and then I'm going to start back at the bottom of the B. And I'm going to continue back stitching all the way through this work, and I will meet you back at the end to show you what comes next. We finished our neckline, hand embroidery, and our sleeve, so we're going to remove our hoops right now, and we're going to very carefully try to remove some of the excess stabilizer. This definitely washes off, but I like to remove the excess, very carefully cut away around all of my hand embroidery. It doesn't have to be perfect, and be very careful not to accidentally cut your shirt or sweatshirt. I might be speaking from experience. Here you can see our finished sleeve, and we're going to do the same thing here by removing some of the excess stabilizer. Next up, it's time to wash. I'm putting this right into the sink with some warm water, and I'm using my hands to kind of gently agitate all the embroidery stabilizer. So here you can see it washes away clean. I'm going to wring this out and throw it right into the dryer. So we finished our embroidery, and now we are at the sewing machine. All we have left to do is sew up the sleeves. So I'm going to flip my sweatshirt inside out. I've also got a pretty close matching thread on my sewing machine. If you have a serger, this would be a great time to use it. If you have a zigzag stitch, I would definitely try that. I only have a straight stitch machine, so I am going to sew it down the sleeve twice. All you're doing here is matching up the raw edges. Be careful not to pull the fabric. You just kind of want to let it feed naturally so it doesn't stretch the sleeve if you've got a kind of stretchier material. I'm going to sew all the way to the cuff. And just to be safe, I'm going to do that one more time, a little bit closer in, so maybe at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Can't even tell. Our sweatshirt is complete. As you can see on the back, you can't even tell what we did. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thanks, y'all.